The big international headline this morning, well, a Gaza truce and hostage release will start this morning. In fact, Qatar has now said that 13 people would be freed initially, and all of them would be women and children from the same families. Well, Israel and Hamas, which have been at war since October the 7th, had announced a deal on Wednesday this week, allowing at least 50 hostages and scores of Palestinian prisoners to be freed during a 4-day truce. Well, the deal facilitated by Qatar, Egypt and the United States is to take effect in stages that can be extended and broadened later as well. It is also intended to provide aid to Gaza's 2.4 million residents. Well, the agreement follows weeks of war in the blockaded Gaza Strip after Hamas militants broke through the militarized Gaza border on October the 7th in an unprecedented escalation. Well, Israeli officials say about 1,200 people, mostly civilians, including women and children, were killed and around 240 taken hostage. Well, relentless Israeli bombardments, meanwhile, and a ground invasion since then have killed more than 14,000 people, mostly women and children, according to the Hamas government in the Gaza Strip. And well, joining us now is Guy Azriel from Israel, an I-24 journalist. Thanks very much, Mr. Azriel, for joining us with the very latest. But what is the hostage situation currently, and how significant is this hostage release deal? Till when can we begin to see the hostages being released?
Yes, so the outline of this hostage release says that if all goes according to plan and the ceasefire coming into force at 7 a.m., well, the release of those Israeli hostages is set for 4 p.m. local time here in Israel. And in Gaza, as far as we understand, the Israeli hostages will be passed through the Rafah crossing, and that's in the southern tip of the Gaza Strip, to the hands of the Red Cross, and from there to the Israeli authorities, who will be waiting on the other side of the border. Once they cross into Israel, they will be taken to a special military facility for the initial medical examination, and also a first phone call with their loved ones, with their families who have been waiting for so long for this sign of life. From there, they will be transferred to one of 5 designated hospitals where they will be cared for and finally get to meet their families. Unfortunately, these are just 13 Israelis out of 236 being held by Hamas in Gaza in those underground tunnels. 50 are slated for release in the next 4 days. All of them children and women, and we're talking about children as young as a 10-month-old baby. You heard that right. A 10-month-old baby is one of those hostages being held by Hamas. He's there with his 4-year-old brother and many others. We're talking about some 39 Israeli children being held by Hamas in Gaza.
Absolutely, those are startling details, Mr. Azriel, that you're talking about. But while this 4-day truce may be seen as some sort of a breakthrough with the release of some hostages initially, what is the permanent solution that you're looking at going ahead? Because this is, of course, as I said, only an interim solution, not a permanent one.
So one of the main goals of Israel in this war, in this fight against Hamas, is to bring about to the release of all those Israeli hostages. But beyond that, the main goal is to restore the safety of the Israelis living along the border next to the Gaza Strip. Some 1,200 Israelis were slaughtered on that devastating Saturday on October 7th, being butchered, murdered, raped, burned alive. In some cases, we've seen babies being shot in the head. We've seen people beheaded. We've seen women being raped. So many atrocities committed by Hamas on that Saturday. And so the prime goal of Israel is to eliminate Hamas's military capability. Along that, Israel wants to bring back all of the Israeli hostages. How will that be done? Well, first through this first hostage release deal. But later on, Israel will need to impose more military pressure on Hamas in this ground operation at the end of these 4 days ceasefire to bring about to the release of more, if it doesn't happen by pressure, if Hamas does not decide to do that themselves, then Israel will have to do everything in its power militarily to bring about to their release. Obviously not an easy task when we're talking about such a brutal jihadist Islamist organization like Hamas, who murdered so many Israelis, who has no sensitivity for civilians and for children as young as we just mentioned.
Israel, thanks very much for joining us with that.